is basically just a conversation. And again, right, as you read, right, as you pick something, all you're doing is picking a conversation. Because again, you guys know this at this point in your student careers, even if you are a beginning student, advanced student, you are not going to come up, most likely, right, with something that has never been written about. Right? Somebody has been talking about it, most likely, right, particularly on a campus such as this, right? These are questions, right, that scholars, biblical, right, studies, specialties, philosophers, theologians, right, you name it, have been debating for some time, right? So you're going to need to find, right, a conversation, just, right, kind of become familiar with it, spend some time listening, right, and then find a way to insert your own voice, right, into the conversation. Now, granted, you have probably seen some of my freshman boys, right, in the Student Center who don't do a lot of listening first, right, before they do speaking. No, never, right, Mr. Burgess. But you guys, know that it would, the way things work, right, social etiquette and things, right, is that you would be a part of the group, you would spend some time listening and kind of figuring things out, right, and then kind of talk. So, same thing here. So, first step, read your prompt, right? I know it sounds silly, but in the Writing Center, you would be amazed by how many students we have come see us that have no idea what the assignment is that has been given by the professor. So I would really encourage you guys, read the syllabus, read the instructions. Because some professors are so specific, they're going to give you like a page. If you have Dr. Sulganic in the college, he has laid all of that out, right, in the syllabus for you. Lots of professors in the seminary, right, Dr. Grace, Dr. Queen, Dr. Yarnell, gosh, Dr. Wilder, Dr. Biles, you name it, right, have either electronic or handouts that they give you, right, that give you all of the things you need to know. So sometimes they'll assign you a topic, sometimes they'll let you pick your own topic, but they'll usually give you how many sources you need, right, if it needs to be in a certain area, on a certain book of the Bible, right, on a certain topic within the Bible, or like, biblical response to a contemporary issue. And so again, start there. That'll also give you a certain number of page numbers, because that is going to be key here, right? We're going to be needing to find a topic that you can do and do well in the amount of time that you have, right, the amount of pages that you have. Because I teach all of the required English classes for the college, and I have a lot of students who want to change the world in 2 pages, right? And so again, that is way more work for you guys than you have to do. So first of all, figure out, right, how you want to do this, figure out your assignment. Okay, because depending on your professor, they may assign you a different type of a topic, right? There is an argument paper, right, which is making a claim, taking a position, right, choosing a side and arguing for that, right, defending it. But some of your professors are going to ask for a summary of something, right? Maybe they want you to look at the literature available. Maybe they want you just to explain what the conversation is, look at pros and cons, or something that's more of a report, right, informational. And some of you are going to write personal responses, right? And then that is actually, right, your own attitudes or questions or personal experiences against whatever the class topic is. So again, all 3 of those are going to be very different kinds of papers. So again, first and foremost, make sure you understand the parameters of the assignment. Okay, second then is I teach my students argument, right? That is what we are focusing on in the college. So that is what I'm going to assume, right, that you guys are working on. So, because this is one of the hardest, if you're going to have to pick, right, a topic that then you can potentially argue for, first, right, where do you start? So I would encourage you guys first start with your classes, right? If you're going to pick a topic, start with something that is interesting to you, right? What would you want to investigate? What would you want to read about? Because, right, you guys don't like boring papers, and I tell you the truth, right, I don't like grading them. Right? And if you hated writing it, I'm probably going to hate reading it, right? That's just the way that it works. So again, right, try to pick something that's a question that is interesting to you. What would you like to discover? What's an answer that you don't have? And again, if it's a biblical topic, right, if you really want to investigate, what is the role of women in ministry? Can pastors who are divorced still be in the pulpit? right? Things that, may be useful to you in the long run, right? What is the best method for Sunday school? Do we need to separate, right, based on gender and age, like a lot of churches do? Or do we need to go back to more of a more of an integrated model, right, where then we're letting all age groups and genders, right, couples and singles and everybody come back together so they can benefit from, right, different, right, I guess, maturity levels of spiritual growth. So again, pick something that is interesting to you, right? Because then that's going to help you do the very first thing, which is ask a question that is worth answering. That is probably the biggest thing that I get, right, is a lot of topics that, right, you think that we want or you think might be easy, right? I don't know if you've ever picked a topic based on that, right? You're like, oh, I got this. Never. Not our students, absolutely not. But again, right, so, and if you pick something that is interesting, you're probably going to then, right, ask a question that is worth answering. And again, right, I have this lovely little manual for writers, right? This is in our library. This is in our bookstore, right? It is $15. I will encourage everybody to have a copy of this. If you are with me in English 3, then I require you to buy it, right? But it says, right, because then the next question is, how can I find something that's interesting to me? Allow me, right? The page 14, right? What topics do you know something about? You can learn more, right? What would you like to know more about? A place, a person, a time, an object, an idea, maybe even a process, right? Can you find a discussion list, right, on the internet if you guys belong to discussion groups or communities online, right? Maybe if you've ever seen online comments on any article, right, people like to fight amongst themselves, right, and discuss things. So maybe one of those conversations is really interesting to you. I know recently a lot of articles have been published on the state of sort of polyamorous relationships in the church. Right, that's a big one. So if that is interesting to you, right, how the church now can take this stand, right, first it was homosexual marriage, right, and so this is the next big fight I think we're going to have as a church, right, and as a Christian body is, if we remove gender from the equation, right, and you can get married to, right, 2 men and 2 women, the next question would logically be then, why limit it to 2? So, right, I think that's where we're going as a culture, right, and discover the answer to that. Have you taken any positions, right, on issues in your field in debates with others? I've walked around this campus many, many times, and I know there are some interesting discussions going around, right? I've gone to get coffee in the cafe. I know what's happening. Right, largely, again, if it's my freshman boys, it's about Calvinism, but, right, there are lots of other fantastic things for you to discuss, right, on this campus. My girls, right, you're laughing because you know it's true, right? You've heard this. And sometimes even in my own classes, right, it tends to come up over and over again. But again, it doesn't have to be that. It can be, right, baptism. I was walking into one of my English classes, and the first thing I heard was, do you think Judas went to heaven? Right, and it sparked this, like, giant debate, right, on how all of this worked out. Dr. Jansen was messing with some of his students to try to get them to think deeply about things, and apparently he offered up the idea that Solomon is not in heaven because of the way that he handled, right, the end of his life. And right before Christ, right, we don't necessarily have exact answers about how those people, right, are going to be saved or not saved. And wow, it really messed with some of his students' heads, right? So again, right, just things like that, positions, debates, anything again, right, that is interesting to you that you can imagine, right, having a conversation about. What issues do people outside of your field misunderstand? We're coming up on some holidays. If you have to explain to your family, right, what you are doing and why, right, or specifically your field, right, what you are studying, what you're doing in your classes, that may be something interesting. Because again, you can pick your audience, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. So as long as you had an audience that doesn't know anything about it, right, you could be introducing them or explaining a problem that exists, right, to someone who needs to know about it. What topic is your instructor working on? Okay, it's a little, brown nosy, right? But again, if that's something that's interesting to you, right, we're studying with some of the best Old Testament, New Testament, systematic, theologians in the world here on this campus, We have archaeology and Egyptology professors on this campus, right, that go do archaeological digs in the Middle East. We've got some really exciting projects here that don't be shy, right, about seeking out that professor if you're already in those classes and asking if you can be a part of their research, right, if there's a part, right, that's interesting to you that you can help them investigate. Many of the schools that I've been a part of, right, been a professor before I came here, those professors had research assistants, right? So then that was something then that you could do to help you get into that field. And does your library have rich resources in the field? Ask a librarian. Right here, right? Some good stuff happening, right? We have access to amazing databases, right, within David, and there's other couple of other databases that Mr. Burgess has shown the students in my classes, I know, right, like the context of Scripture, right, investigating the things that are happening. So maybe you want to look at the differences in creation stories across cultures in the Middle East, right? Why is our Genesis account a unique account, right, because lots of cultures, right, have creation stories, have explanations for how the world came into being. Okay, right, and what other courses will you take, right, either in your field or out of your field, right? So again, ways to think about these things. So again, because I always get questions from students, can I talk about something that I'm doing in another class? Absolutely, yes, perfect. We've deliberately designed all of your courses to be, right, to blend with one another, right? It's a graduated sequence of courses. So I hope, right, that you're taking what you're doing in your other classes and bringing it into my class, right, and vice versa. So start with that, right? Do that. And now, as soon as you have done that, number one, right? So because just finding the topic, that's only the first step, right? Now you're going to have to make it manageable, or you're going to have to reduce your scope. Because again, if you're in the college, you're writing smaller papers, maybe 2 to 3 pages, maybe 5 to 7 pages. And as you guys know, right, any big topic that you can think of, right, there's no way you can do that and do that well in only 5 to 7 pages.
You don't be like Dr. Allen writing a 900-page.
Oh, yes.
Okay? You're not the expert in the atonement. You don't need to do that.
Oh, yes. Right? And this has been, oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, in fact, I did have a student who wanted to write on the atonement for his very first paper in English 1, and he only had 2 pages, and Dr. Allen, it took him 857 pages, right, to talk about the atonement. So, yes. And a decade of research, yes. But Dr. Allen is known for really large books, right? The next one he's working on, I think, is going to be about 1,000 pages. So that's just what he does. Again, and the rest of us, I'm not Dr. Allen, right? So there's no way I'm writing a 900-page book. It's just not happening. So then reduce scope, right? And there's several ways that we can do that, right? In fact, here, let me go back here. So one way to do that, and this is usually right where we're going to end up spending probably most of our time, is, first of all, read. Right? You should be familiar with the conversation that is happening to figure out, there's lots of subtopics, right, within your major topic. And again, since you can't talk about the big one, right, what specific aspect of that topic do you want to engage with? So, right, let me see. Somebody give me a topic that you're thinking about. Any topic. Okay, maybe not Calvinism, right? Just other than that. Anybody have any idea? Do what? Oh, okay, excellent. Okay, so obviously huge, right? Really, really big. So now, right, what we can do then is figure out, right, you can read on the particular topic, right? But the second one's going to be interesting, right? Look at the ideas and the questions and the debates within that topic, right? Because obviously within marriage and divorce, what are some smaller topics? What would we have to potentially consider? What's a smaller topic within there? When is it ethical to divorce? Right? And so notice, right, we're asking a research question, right, of the topic. And I would encourage you guys, don't ask yes-no questions, because those are probably going to be too easy, right, and not worth asking. Is divorce okay? Well, and again, right, that it's almost a trick question, particularly if you're on this campus, right, because the answer, according to Dr. Patterson, is no, right, never. Divorce is never okay. So again, right, ask a so what question, something then that is helping you get to the significance aspect of it. So When is it ethical, right? Assuming that it might be ethical in some situations, and what would those situations be? What's another one we can break down, right? Because again, we're going to need to find smaller topics to work with. Yes, yeah. Absolutely, right? It gets tricky, right? Divorce in ministry. Right? Because I don't know about you guys, but I have actually been a member of churches where the pastor has been divorced, and it created, right, division within the church, right? His congregation, right, was pretty split on how they felt about that. Right? One question could also possibly be, why are divorce rates within the Christian community the same, right, as outside of the Christian community? Right? If we are believers, if we have this higher, right, ethical and moral code, right, as followers of Christ, how come, right, at least initially the statistics would hint at, right, exactly the same percentage of people who are getting divorced? Oh, there you go. Well, and then, right, that's another topic, right? How does the Bible treat marriage, right, in Old Testament versus New Testament? Obviously some major differences happening there. That you can look at, right, if you're more interested in ministry, right? How does the church respond to, right, an increasingly large number of its believers, its body, right, that are dealing with divorce and the repercussions of that, right? Emotional, physical, mental, spiritual. And again, right, we can keep going, right? Because then we'd have to define marriage. We haven't even talked about homosexual marriage, right? We haven't talked about the polyamorous relationships. Right? Are we defining marriage like this? But once within marriage, can you do anything you want? Right? What does a satisfying marriage look like? You can talk about gender roles, right, within marriage, right? What does that look like? Are we looking at scripturally, right? Or, which then brings up, right, can you be a feminist, right, and also, right, a Christian? How does that role look? What is a feminist, right? Because we've also been hearing a lot about, like, biblical feminists or Christian feminists, and what does that look like? Because, again, that plays into gender roles, right, marital satisfaction. Oh gosh, then the role of children, right? So now you've noticed, right, how big marriage and divorce actually is if I can ask that many sub-questions within, right, the big topic. So I would... Absolutely you will. So that's why, right, I would encourage you guys, either brainstorm, do something exactly like what we just did. So either, right, talk about it with your friends, right? Kind of write down your thoughts, right, all of the questions that we just came up with, see which one is interesting to you. If you're more of a visual person, I would encourage you to do more like a cluster diagram or like a wheel spoke where your marriage topic, right, is in the middle, and then you go off of that, right, into the smaller topics, because each of the questions we just asked could be broken down into smaller topics as well. So then you would need to decide how small, right, or how narrow, how much do I need to reduce the scope of this in order to do it and do it well. And again, I would encourage you, right, find the one that interests you, right, investigate it, and then help you get to the potential arguments here. And that, again, is going to be key, right? It should be debatable. It should be something, right, that you can defend, that will invite conversation. If I just say that marriage is bad. Oh, no, I was just right, making a crazy statement, right? Marriage is bad, right? Are you going to want to really talk to me about that particular topic? Probably not, right? You're going to run away. You're like, okay, wow, she sounds really like set in that kind of a position. So it doesn't invite conversation. So again, try to look at something, right, that's a debate or a point of contention or discussion. And then again, right, you're going to come up with something and be able to write a paper that really investigates something that is, again, worth discovering. You can also do free writing. If you are one of those that just wants to dive into it, I encourage my own students, right, we do this in English 3, to either do a passage-focused free write, where you have read something and then you write immediately on that passage, or you think about your topic and you write. But the idea for a free write is to not stop writing for whatever the amount of time is that you have set for yourself. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But the idea is not to stop typing with your fingers or not to stop writing with your pen or your pencil, and just to generate ideas. Because sometimes, right, we have no idea what we think until we're really going through the process of getting those thoughts out on paper. And usually, right, there's going to be one really amazing idea that will come out of that free writing that you'll get to hold on to for later. Sometimes, right, it's a thesis statement. Sometimes it's a more revised, right, research question, right, or narrowed topic, whatever that might be. And for some of you, right, if it ends up being a really great paragraph as you get more practiced in it, then look at that. You already have maybe a body paragraph or an intro paragraph, so you've already started writing the paper. And it's less scary, right, if you actually break it down into manageable chunks instead of waiting, right, until 3 o'clock in the morning, right, before it's due at 8 a.m., yes? Okay. And again, right, that's the last point here, right, is find a point of comparison or contrast. Because then the one tomorrow night that I'm going to do is how do you come up with a thesis statement, right, based on all of these wonderful things. So once you've gotten the topic, once you've researched it, once you've done some reading, and then once you've figured out, right, what's a position you might want to take, or how do you want to find this point, right, and then we'll talk about, right, tomorrow night, what to do after that.